Welcome into Marketology for Monday, February 26th. We're going over all things in the sports betting landscape, getting a view from the other side of the counter with Matt Holt, the Vice President of CG Technology. Follow him on Twitter at Matthew Holt VP. Matt, welcome in. How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, Drew. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. How was the weekend? You did a little wrestling with your son, huh?
Yeah, not bad, right? Busy weekend. Kind of the last college basketball weekend for some of these conferences, and I took Maddie Jr. to a WWE pay-per-view event at T-Mobile, and it's an interesting crowd, to say the least.
Yeah, so you got kids, you got adults, you got wrestling. Were you scared of any of the adults in the stands?
Yeah, the adults are certainly interesting. They go to these events. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, really.
No,
You know,
good
Ronda
stuff.
Rousey was there Sunday, which was kind of cool. And she picked up some guy and threw him through a table. So
Now, is
it
she
had its
living in
moment.
Las Vegas now?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know she married that fighter, and I thought they were living in Hawaii, actually.
Okay. No, that makes sense. No, I saw you on Twitter posting stuff out there with your son. It looked like a good time. But it is a big weekend. We had the UFC card as well. How'd you guys do with that card?
We did all right. You know, most of the favorites got home in that card. Jeremy Stevens ending up winning the main event, the co-main event. Also a favorite, Jessica Andrade. So, and the over was a big favorite in there, minus 300. It was a fairly chalky card, but I think we ended up doing okay.
Okay, good stuff, Matt. And one of the big things in the sports betting landscape right now is conference tournaments in college basketball getting started this week. Is this a extra tough time for you guys putting out numbers? And also, what about teams getting bet so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So we put out college conference tournaments last week, and I think we were at least the first ones up in Vegas with them for sure. And right away they started getting hit last week, and that's kind of continued into this week as we have our first college basketball conferences starting tonight with the Atlantic Sun Conference starting tonight. We got a couple more starting tomorrow, and then the Big Ten tournament starting Wednesday. So yeah, for sure, it's going to be a big week. There'll be a ton of betting on these. Some of the more popular ones last week were Kentucky at 6-1 was a really popular choice. They were betting some of the other Pac-12 teams like Oregon, Arizona State, Stanford, due to the Sean Miller and Alonzo Trier issues at Arizona. They were betting Virginia. You know, we still made Duke the favorite to win the ACC tournament, but they were betting Virginia pretty good. Some of the long shots they were betting to win that tournament included Florida State and NC State, both as big long shots, 20-1 or greater. So yeah, we've seen a lot of action so far, and it's going to be interesting to see how it heats up this week.
Yeah, and what about on tonight's card? We got Duke, Virginia Tech. Looks like Duke laying 5.5 on the road, 154.5-ish the total. It looks like there was a big move towards the under. Is that what you guys saw?
Yeah, and we're starting to see some sharp underdog action too. This one's kind of turned into a pros versus Joes. This is a rematch just from Valentine's Day, actually, where Marvin Bagley was questionable all day. He ends up getting announced out at the last minute. And this line, I think, went from like 12 down to about 10, or at least 11.5 down to 10 with the Bagley announcement that he wasn't going to play. And Duke went ahead and hammered him anyway, winning by 22, I think. So a little bit of a revenge factor tonight for a Virginia Tech team that got blown out by Duke just 2 weeks ago without their best player. So I think the Sharps like to play those in-season revenge games. We're seeing a little bit of sharp action on the dog here. Be interesting to see where this one ends up at tip-off because the public loves to bet Duke.
Yeah, for sure. And also Duke going to that zone defense probably has something to do with the under movement. What about number 6 team in the nation catching 6.5 at the number 21 team in the nation? You don't see that very often. Is that what you guys have it at with Texas Tech visiting West Virginia tonight?
We are currently 6.5. Yeah, 6.5, 141.5 current. And you're right, that one is kind of an anomaly here. We don't see that a whole lot. But look, this Texas Tech team, I don't want to say they were on borrowed time all year, but let's face it, Zach Smith went out earlier in the season for him, so you're basically playing most of the year without your second best player. Their best player, Keenan Evans, has been banged up. I know he returned to action, but he's still not 100%. And all of a sudden, you have a Texas Tech team that's coming off 3 straight losses, and 2 of those losses aren't great against Baylor and Oklahoma State. So look, I think everyone goes through it in the Big 12. That conference is such a gauntlet. There's no terrible teams. There's no nights off. I think everyone's going to go through bad runs. And right now, Texas Tech, 3 straight losses. We saw last year this was a team that failed to win a game on the road in conference play. Obviously, had a much better year last year. But without Zach Smith all year, Keenan Evans banged up, this looks like a team that might be running out of gas a little bit down the stretch.
Yeah, for sure. With the Keenan Evans injury, I mean, he just hasn't been performing the same. So big key to the cog there. Matt, we got NBA action as well. Detroit, Toronto. Looks like Toronto laying 10, 217-ish the total. What kind of action are you seeing in this game?
Yeah, and this is an interesting game as well. Kind of another pros versus Joe scenario where the public kind of all over the Toronto Raptors here, the current number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Sharps like the Pistons tonight though, plus the big number. That's why the line's dropping. I mean, we've seen this Detroit team kind of be up and down since the trade, right? They haven't necessarily played their best basketball lately, losing 5 of their last 6 games outright. But they were on a good, nice ATS run after the trade to get Blake Griffin. Looked like they were playing better basketball. Looked like maybe they were going to make a run to get to that 8 seed with Blake Griffin. All of a sudden, lost 5 of 6. Don't look so good. The Sharps seem to like them though tonight, especially probably with the double-digit number.
And Matt, we got some NHL coming up. Also, some questions from Twitter. Some guys wanting to get your opinion on some things. And everybody out there watching live, we appreciate it if you could give us the thumbs up, the like button. That helps us out a lot. And also in the live chat box, feel free to chime in with any questions you want me to ask Matt or any questions for myself. Be happy to help you out. And we appreciate you watching live. Matt, in the NHL, we got to talk the Vegas Golden Knights here, traveling to LA Kings. What kind of action are you seeing hockey-wise tonight?
So look, interestingly enough, and it's just amazing what these lines look like on the Vegas Golden Knights now. Favored now, opened up LA Kings a small favorite. Now it's the Vegas Golden Knights favorite on the road. Look, if we had made this line prior to the start of the season, it probably would have been LA minus 220. Now all of a sudden, we're nearing the end of the season and it's the Vegas Golden Knights, a road favorite at the LA Kings. Looks like Jonathan Quick is going to start in goal tonight. I know that was a question mark early, and Golden Knights still favored, even with the announcement that Quick is going to start in goal, although we're starting to see some of that LA buyback. And it's going to be interesting to see how these new players gel for the Vegas Golden Knights. They made another big trade today, getting Tomas Tatar, about 20 perennial 20-goal scorer. So I don't think any of these acquired players and trades they made today, Philip Holm or Thomas Tatar, going to play tonight, but going to be interesting after tonight's game how the new players mix in with a team that has gelled all season long.
And Matt, as far as making the odds in the NHL, how would you compare the goalie to maybe say the quarterback in an NFL game or a college football game, or even a starting pitcher in baseball? Is it that big of a deal towards the odds?
I think your starting pitcher analogy is much more appropriate necessarily than the quarterback. A quarterback in the NFL is just, it's so overwhelming to the line. We've seen lines with Aaron Rodgers and some of these quarterbacks move literally 10 points from starting quarterback to backup. A starting pitcher in Major League Baseball, other than Clayton Kershaw and a very select few, it's never going to be that much of a drop, but it certainly affects the number every night. Especially when you're talking about an LA team. Jonathan Quick was highly regarded as maybe the best goalie in hockey a couple of years ago, especially when the Kings went on that cup run. Basically, a lot of that success was attributed to Jonathan Quick. So LA is one of those teams from Jonathan Quick, not only the better goalie on that team, but the bigger name. There certainly would have been a price drop had he not been able to play tonight.
Matt, we got some questions in the chat box here. Vegas plays back-to-back versus Kings. If they are favored now, then will be favored again on Tuesday. Having said this, can Vegas win the cup? In your opinion, do you think they can win the cup? And have you taken any action on that?
Oh my God, they're the biggest liability to
Yeah.
not only our shops here in Vegas, but the biggest liability to win the cup, I think, at every place in Vegas. In fact, if they win the cup, there's going to be some books in Vegas that really, really take it on the chin. You got to figure, I mean, this team was 100 and something to 1 to start the year, and people were still betting them at that price strictly based on the fact that, hey, we have a team here now and we want to root for them. We're going to get Vegas Golden Knights to win the cup tickets in their first year in existence. Well, now at 4 to 1, basically is the favorite to win the cup. Those 100 to 1, 50 to 1, and 61 tickets are awful scary. And we've taken some fairly big bets on the Golden Knights. If they win, it's not going to be a good Monday after.
No, I'm sure not. So getting towards, especially in the playoffs, would you have value going? I guess using that to your advantage as a better, knowing that the books are going to bring that into the every game pricing to try to get money on the other side?
Yeah, I think you have to assume at this point, if you're in Vegas and you have the opportunity to bet in Vegas, there's probably going to be value betting against the Golden Knights every day. Or to put it a different way, you're probably going to pay a premium in Vegas on Golden Knights on a game by game basis because the future liability is already so extremely high.
Yeah, for sure. We got other guys in the chat box. Salty Dog asking about Texas tonight in college basketball. Anything to note in that game? I guess it's
Let me see if
725,
taking
726.
Yeah, I got it. So we actually, our biggest bet is on Kansas on this game from a sharp player. I mean, the public's on Kansas at about a 2 to 1 clip. Not a surprise there, but the only two 5-figure bets we took on this game, both on Kansas, one of them laid 10.5. The other one actually laid 11 with Kansas. So the Sharps like the home favorite here, which is a rarity.
Okay, and we got Lucas Stevens saying, "Don't overthink things. Just take Vegas minus 105 on the road. Flower in the cage against an LA team that has only scored more than 3 goals twice in their last 9 games." You think he has a point there, Matt?
I mean, look, Vegas is so hot. I mean, it's hard to argue against betting on Vegas. And in fact, I felt like this team overachieved so much. I thought there were times when betting against Vegas had value, and I lost all of those bets. So, yeah, any bet that is, anytime anyone's making the case to bet on Vegas, I stop arguing with them.
Okay, and Matt, getting into kind of conference tourney time and putting out numbers on some of these teams, especially in the smaller conferences. Do you have lower limits? Because you really haven't been putting out numbers on some of these smaller conference teams. So it's not like you've been concentrating on them. So it might be more risk to your side of the counter.
Yeah, not really. So we're going to take normal limits in this situation because most of these games are televised, and that means a big deal. People want to bet games that are on TV, and we have a little bit better understanding of what's going on if we can look up and watch the game. One of the
Okay.
reasons that these non-board teams all year have lower limits on the extra board is because it's hard to watch them. If there's an injury, if there's something going on in the court and you can't actually put it on a station and watch it, then it becomes difficult, right?
Hmm.
Where this time of year in the conference tournaments, they'll actually be on TV. And so thus the limits will probably be about the same as they would for normal conference teams. And there'll probably be some opportunities for sharp bettors. But, it's an interesting time of year in betting college basketball tournaments because one of the things that we see this time of year and we have to take into account that's really difficult is motivation, and we had trouble when we were pricing the Big East this year. Villanova at the time looked, when we first put the odds out, looked like they were clearly going to be a number 1 seed, and they don't have the best history of always wanting to win the Big East tournament, and with so many teams behind them fighting for those kind of spots on the bubble or just off the bubble. A lot of times motivation in these conference tournaments means a ton. Some of these teams in these better conferences, they already know they're going to the NCAA tournament. They already have their spot lined up. Health becomes a bigger concern than trying to grind out 4 straight days of wins in a conference tournament. They have bigger aspirations to cut down the net in the Final Four. Thus, it's something you really have to consider here when betting these conference tournaments. Understand the motivation of these teams, and not every team in a powerhouse conference cares about winning their conference tournament.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't bring that into account. We also got Ant-Man asking any thoughts on Florida Gulf Coast tonight. I guess one of those small conference teams against USC Upstate. Looks like what, 18 or 19. I mean, do you have any opinion on laying that many points in these small conference tournaments?
Yeah, I don't know. I would certainly be a little bit careful. The one thing you need to be careful of too in some of these smaller conferences is that the first couple of rounds a lot of times are at home. Where the home team actually plays a home game. So in Florida Gulf Coast case, I'm not sure. Look, we know they get great crowds. They actually won a couple of tournament games a few years ago, went to the Sweet 16. So the crowd's going to be into it. And you don't know if South Carolina Upstate is giving up or not. Doesn't really want to go on the road to play there. There's some true home court advantages in some of these spots. I actually like Lipscomb in that tournament. And I think Lipscomb, if they get there, assuming it plays out a little chalky, Lipscomb, the way they play defense and can score the basketball, may give Florida Gulf Coast a heck of a run in the championship. But really, lately, this has been Florida Gulf Coast Conference to lose.
Yeah, Matt, great point on the making sure you know where the game is. Some of these games might be home games. We also got another question. Do you have a dark horse in the ACC, or who do you think would win the ACC tournament? Also asking, do you think NC State can win the ACC tournament?
Well, I could tell you that there's some sharp people who think NC State can win the ACC tournament because we took some really sharp bets from a couple of people to win that tournament. A couple of the schools I looked at earlier, Miami is kind of banged up. Clemson, we know they're banged up. They're tired, so I wouldn't be looking to back them. The one team I think might have some value in like the 6 to 1 range is Louisville. Look, they were supposed to be the second best team in the ACC to start the season, top 10 ranked in the preseason. And then, of course, Rick Pitino gets fired, and everyone thinks that the whole program is going to fall off a cliff at Louisville. Oh my gosh, what are they going to do without Rick Pitino? But it's still the same players this year, and this is actually a really talented Louisville team. And what you have to look for sometimes in this 4 straight wins in 4 straight days setting is a team that can win a game without a hot shooting night. Louisville's that team. They play such good defense. They rebound the basketball so well. Their pressure defense creates turnovers where they can have a poor shooting night and make up for it with great defense, great rebounding, and points off turnovers. That might be a team I would look for as a sleeper to win the ACC.
Yeah, I like it. A lot of people down on them recently. That's a good one. Looks like, guys, we'll try to keep it under 5 minutes here, trying to keep it like 20 minutes or so. Ant, you're welcome, man. Appreciate you chiming in. Also, we got Ben in the chat box saying, can Dukeman make any noise with the fact that Allen can't play well with Bagley on the court? You liking Duke at all, Matt?
The problem is with Duke, you're only getting 2 to 1, and the ACC is the deepest conference in college basketball. You look at the latest Joe Lunardi bracketology, and they are projected to get, 9 or 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. When you have 10 NCAA tournament teams, you're talking about a conference that goes really, really deep. And historically, Duke doesn't always have the greatest history of success in this tournament. And there's some off-the-court issues. I mean, Coach K was mentioned in that investigation. Duke was mentioned in that investigation about players getting paid. I think this team's built to maybe compete, to maybe be a deserved favorite to win the NCAA tournament. But at 2 to 1, I certainly think that there's probably some better value lying elsewhere to win the ACC tournament.
Okay, Matt. And Andrew in the chat box asking Duke, Virginia Tech. Man, we just hit that in the beginning of the show, so make sure to catch the replay on the YouTube channel. Matt, what about your favorite CG technology book to watch a game at? What would you say that is?
By far the Cosmopolitan. I mean, it just has a great atmosphere. Foosball, shuffleboard, pool tables. It has that like frat room party vibe. Everybody's having a good time, has a great bar right in the center, really cool couches we put in there to watch the games on. Great viewing experience no matter where you sit, whether you're on the couches, at the high top tables, at the bar. I mean, it definitely has one of the cooler vibes in Vegas, and it's actually right off the strip. You walk right in off the strip, right into the book. By far, coolest place to watch a game. If you're also looking for atmosphere, it would definitely be the Cosmopolitan. If you're just looking for screen size and the best actual like viewing experience on the screens, the Venetian's probably the best in Las Vegas. But as far as atmosphere, really cool, fun place to watch a game, you can't beat the Cosmo.
So do you find like that there's girls just chilling there watching games too, or not as much?
A lot more at the Cosmo. I mean, it's a lot more hipper, fun feeling place, whereas the Venetian has an unbelievable viewing experience. But what we tend to see is it's a little bit more high end bettors that are making bets. They sit there, they're not cheering the game as much. And I mean, at the Cosmo, there's guys yelling every play. I mean, it's fun, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Andrew also asking about the UFC. Yeah, a bunch of the favorites hit, so not sure it was too good for CG Technology. But Matt, also, how does your Caribbean book do compared to the Vegas books? Do you do a lot of handle there?
You mean the Bahamas?
Yeah, the Bahamas. But the Bahamas is in the Caribbean, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying the Bahamas, the
Okay.
ones that we have in the Bahamas. Yeah, no, it does okay. Really the problem is, and there's this, everyone categorizes all the Caribbean books kind of in the same, but some of those islands like the Bahamas, where you have a challenge where the local Bahamians aren't able to legally wager in the casinos. So basically, all of your wagering comes from tourists, and then you have your busy season, your hurricane seasons there, and so because it's so seasonal with the tourists, it really is hit or miss sometimes.
Ah, interesting. I didn't realize that the locals can't actually bet. I think that's the same in Costa Rica. I'm not really sure though. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's how it is. They can't gamble on sports or in the casino, period. So the Bahamians aren't legally allowed to wager, despite the fact that Bahamians make up over 95% of the staffs at the actual casinos.
Oh man, that's interesting. Well,
Yeah.
anything else you want to throw out there before we shut this down?
No, look, I mean, this week really kicks off the beginning of March Madness. Tonight is the first official college conference tournament going on. And there's a bunch this week. So I just, I always try to tell people this time of year, try to have fun with it, right? Don't take March Madness similar to the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean you should make your biggest bets ever. It's just one more game. Although, unlike the Super Bowl with March Madness, it's just like 150 more games with all these college conference tournaments and then the big NCAA tournament. Try to have fun with it. Try to look for opportunities. Don't forget about motivation. Make sure you know where every game is being played. Look, the Big Ten tournament this year is going to Madison Square Garden. They never play in New York. None of the teams are regionally associated with it. There's so many things that goes on with these tournaments. It's good to make sure you actually know all the information going into the games.
Yeah, Matt. No, great stuff there. I couldn't say anything better than that. I mean, Juanma, anything from the producer's angle you want to throw out there, bud?
No, if there is any space to ask another question, this guy Andrew is asking if you guys did cover the Jazz and Rockets game already.
Okay. Anything on the Jazz or Rockets, Matt?
Let's see what we got. I know that they just announced Eric Gordon out a little while ago. So what we tend to see normally is when there's injury announcements, it tends to create action, right? Just the buzz of, hey, this guy is officially out tends to create action. And that's what we've seen here is since the Eric Gordon announcement, we've probably taken about 3 times more dollars wagered over the counter on the Utah Jazz. But since the Eric Gordon announcement on account, we've only taken 3 bets, $1,000 or more since the injury announcement, all 3 on the Houston Rockets. So the Sharps, like the Rockets, laying the short number without Eric Gordon, where over the counter, that injury seems to have pushed people toward the home underdog Utah.
Yeah, and Andrew also throwing out Rockets playing back-to-back in high altitude. I mean, would that already be accounted into the line, you think?
Yeah, I mean, the line was already short, right? It was already only 2. And
okay. No, that makes sense. Well, yeah, special shout out to you, Juanma, for the shirt. I had a different shirt on, but the background here at our studio didn't go well, so I appreciate it, man.
Welcome, man.
All right. Well, yeah, Matt, anything else or you good to go? I'm sure you're busy.
That's it. Yeah, that's it for me, man.
All right, guys. Well, if you're in Vegas, make sure to check out a CG Technology book, The Cosmo, highly recommended by Matt. Also, The Venetian for the better screens. But for Matt Holt, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in.